Okay, we're recording here again. Another issue, please go check out the previous pod to gauge your bearings. Another issue with the fees on PayPal is that they're in dollars. So that just makes life very rough. Like $1 currently to the rand, last time I checked, was like 17 rands or 18 rands or whatever. So if you're charged $5, it's literally, for somebody as poverty stricken as I am, we're not even trying to do $10, $5 at all. Yeah. So I couldn't use PayPal, and I didn't want to make that recommendation, that suggestion, because like I said, yeah, okay. So a seller has now lost a sale and the product got to me, and the seller is comprehensively innocent. Comprehensively. Why? Because the product that he or she shipped to me got here on time, within the guidelines, or what is this, time prescribed by AliExpress. It got here 3 days early, based on the deadline date. I was supposed to get an SMS within those 3 days. As soon as it arrived at the post office, they were supposed to send me a text message or an email or a letter, and they did no such thing. And now the seller has to bear the brunt of the South African inefficiency system, the South African inefficiencies within our systems. The seller is taking the fire, not the post office. They got their $250, by the way, $60 for customs payments, not the South African shipping logistics system, none of that. They have not had to pay a single dime for what in the world happened in this particular scenario. The person who has borne 100% of the loss here is the seller. And another thing about the seller is that if at all he or she were to demand what do you call this, a return of the product, he or she would have to be the one to pay for the customs on their side when the product arrives, and they would also have to pay for the shipping. So he or she probably did the mathematics and was like, okay, based on how much this cost to procure from the warehouse, and based on the cost of the entire transaction, does it make business sense? Just a nightmare. Is it worth it for one product in my store? So they cut their losses. But after cutting their losses, do you think there is not a residue of bitterness there? Do you not think there's residual bitterness? There is. Likely the residual bitterness is they keep doing this to us. They don't protect us as sellers on the platform. And every time I send a product, for instance, to South Africa, not every time, but so far there's been 20% of all of the sales that I have sent to South Africa, all of the sales I have made from South African clients, they've been these issues. They always complain that they don't get the product. They always complain that they don't get the product. So this dude, even when I asked him to be the one to follow up with the post office, because this is now, he's got the responsibility to make sure I get my stuff for him and I ask for a refund, he probably got like maybe 20 other such laments in this day. So now he has to call the post office for 20 people's parcels, packages, an international number first and foremost. So it's going to cost him that much money as a business to call an international organization, like a post office in an African country, in order to make sure that this customer that's complaining, these 20 customers that are complaining they haven't gotten their product, gets them. So sometimes it just makes more business sense to ignore them if there are 100 other customers that got their product, and so he got the money or she got the money. They were able to make those sales. When a person has to project in their sales numbers these kinds of glitches based on one country, after some time it stops making business sense at all selling to South Africa. After some time it starts to basically be okay for you to discriminate against South Africa. So can a person make a decision not to sell to South Africa? I suspect if they make a strong enough case with AliExpress, they can allow for them to not, I know that on eBay, when you try to purchase something, because before I ultimately ended up buying a camera on AliExpress, I tried to buy one on eBay, right? I don't know if it was the same make or a different make or whatever, and eBay was like, we don't ship to, like, literally it flat out told me you cannot make this purchase because we don't ship to South Africa. Now, it's not everywhere on eBay where they don't ship to South Africa. It's just some places. So I do believe that currently already merchants can make a decision that we're not shipping to South Africa. So I could not buy. Literally, I was blocked from buying because the people refused to ship what I wanted to this country. Why? Because there are already people likely in the system that are that are fed up. There are likely already people in the system that are already fed up with the logistical nightmare of having to send the products over to South Africa. It's just not worth it anymore. And likely the people who suffer the most are those who are just starting out with maybe selling on Ali as a merchant. But as they learn, as lessons learned are gathered, as insights are gathered over time, more and more of them, as they get more seasoned in their craft, in their business. They're gonna be like, it doesn't make sense for me to trade with South Africa. I'm cutting ties. It does not make sense for me to do business with South Africa. Like I spoke all that whole lengthy thing to get to this particular point, that you are facing a future of no longer being able to buy from your favorite online store anymore as a South African because of your country's corruption, and you have got everything to do with all of that. You did it. You made sure. You who loves to buy shoes from online stores that are international, you who loves to buy your coats, your jackets, you who likes to purchase designer labels overseas because they're cheaper than what they are at Sandton Square. Yeah, no, the day is fast approaching when you go to your online store and it's been shut down, or at least in your country, at least in your local area, only where you are at, because you are insufferable to do business with as a nation at large. You are responsible for that, because the inefficiencies in the post office are directly linked, positively correlated to your corruption in your job. You haven't kicked out your colleague who was better than you at their job, and so or you sabotaged them, you bore false witness against them in a disciplinary hearing, and they ended up getting fired. Yeah, you are a saboteur, or you caused them such a nightmarish existence in the office, on the job, as a horrible boss, that they ultimately got constructively dismissed. Cat, I don't have time for this, please. There's other places where you can get food, and you know it. It's literally, there's a food bowl just there outside. So yeah, no, it is entirely 100% the fault of South Africans on the ground. Do not go and blame the post office only, or larger structures. Basically everything, it's like a babushka doll. I don't know if you guys know those Chinese dolls that you take one out and there's another smaller one underneath, and then another one smaller underneath, and another one, until ultimately there's just one little tiny one that can no longer be pulled apart or dismantled. The corruption in this country literally takes on the form of a babushka doll. The overarching structures that run the land are messed up because the individual people on the inside underneath are just as corrupt. So you are literally there who is sitting Cyril Ramaphosa, just a tiny little version of him. You are Julius Malema, just a tiny little version of him. You are the corrupt political structures of this country, just the tiny versions of them. You are the fallen state, just the tiny little versions that contribute to it. You have destroyed the country. You are the murderers. You are the Thabo Bestas and the Nandi Pamaku Dumelas or whatever. You are the things that are bringing South Africa to its knees, just in varying measure, just in varying sizes. You are a babushka doll in an overarching general structure or a shape of a corrupt country. And so you have made sure that a seller on AliExpress has to give Karabo a camera for free, because it just makes more business sense to do so than to try and get the product back, or to try and get this woman to purchase it again on the internet. And I feel bad for him or her. However, what it is that him or her did helped me to a certain extent, because that's the only reason I was able to afford to even fetch my product. I had no money. The bit of money that I was given, I was enabled with Ifedile, because I had needs. I had to go get tampons, face products, and what have you, and the money basically ran to the end of itself, and I was just sitting around waiting for whenever else that the Lord would help me. I didn't need anything. Nothing is pressing right now. I've got everything I need for at least the next couple of weeks, but this need came up, and I thought that I would have to struggle to acquire what it is that I needed, but the Lord made a way for me, in a way, however, that made me very sad. I was able to get my camera, but not without somebody else losing it. There is damage caused in somebody else's life economically. They have lost money, they've lost business, they have had to declare shrinkage in their merchandise, in their stock. They have had to declare losses in their books, account. What is this in accounting? No. Go and get your food outside. You know where else to get food. Don't just stand here, mopelaka. These are the conditions that I'm being made to live in. Whatever, you get my point. These are the ramifications of corruption. You don't get to think girlfriend you don't get to think that you can sit around sabotaging your opposite colleague's entire career to further your own and not destroy the South African mailing system, industry, trade, logistics, shipping, customs. You don't get to think that you can do such things and not collateral damage, domino effect down the line. Put a pothole on a street. You don't get to think that you can be corrupt as an HR manager that's working with business in order to wreak havoc in the careers of honest South African protected citizens under the Labor Relations Act who are not using it in order to basically gather dust in a chair and not do their jobs, but they are using the law for the purpose that the law has been put there, employee protection, when they do actually need it. You don't get to corruptly cajole the system by making sure that you get the best out of it, juice it by literally recruiting all of human resources in an organization to work for the management and not for the people. You don't get to do that and not imagine that is the reason why there are no robots that are operating all across Hendrik Potgieter or even Power Cards in Jandin. Well, you don't get to think that your behavior has nothing to do with the fact that there's load shedding for more than 10 hours a day and for months on end now, inevitably, and nobody knows, indefinitely, and nobody knows when this is going to end. You don't get to think you ain't got nothing to do with it. You don't get to rock up on Twitter and trend some funny little thing that's going on in the country and pretend that that's not the reason, that you have not been the cause of that. You don't get to look at another girl dying from gender-based violence and think you ain't got jack to do with it. Oh, Jesus, media you're violent, I'm forced, like rape. I can't say that enough. You don't get to think that you have got nothing to do with the horrific statistics of this country. You do not get to do that. You literally do not get to think that this country has been trashed and crashed by everyone but you, because you don't get the cat. You don't get to think that you can literally run your ecosystem, your very immediate environment, to the ground and there not be long-term collateral damage generally in a wider range. You are like a nuke that explodes in one geographical location, but the radiation is so extreme that it reaches across the oceans and gets into another country's borders, and so kills people there, drops them like dominoes, and makes them give birth to babies with deformities. You don't get to think that your activities, where it is that you're sitting in your little silo, in your little tiny corner in your country, that you have got nothing to do with the overall issues on the ground in your country at the great white throne judgment. I believe the Lord is going to show every last human being what the ramifications of every last one of their actions were, what they affected in totality, just broadly, and even then, never mind within their own lifetime, but across generations, what their deeds in one generation, on that one fateful day, what they did to a future. Let's think about Margaret Sanger, for instance, the cheeky, this eugenicist, like random racist cheeky, Planned Parenthood. The number of abortions that she has made people commit. How many people she sent to hell through her Planned Parenthood experimentation, the racist ideals, sterilizer certain communities. Y'all need to understand, Hitler, today, since we're not the Nazis, there are still people with the white supremacist ideology mindset, all the anti-Semitism in this world, like people saying things like Hitler was right about the Jews, the Israel, because their name is Palestine or whatever. Hitler's gonna have to account for all that hatred, for everything I say. And that obviously I've done some pretty horrific things in history, but what about you, like little lady, old lady, like Martha, Mary, Jemima, how do you think Mokonenka Mosoweto go zone, go deep blue, like zone 3, go deep blue phase 3, so yeah, you're like really, or go deep blue extension 3, you're nothing, you're nowhere, like you don't even get one friend request in 5 months on Facebook, you ain't nobody. Mara, orata korobela wa lawyer, ujisise boyfriend, and on top of that, you have sabotaged umngani wakho, utafile esikolweni because you slipped some sleeping pills into bojwala ba gagwe ora ska bala for biology exam. You're gonna see what the ramifications of that one thing that you did meant. What that one thing, you literally do not get to sit mo dutsing teng ntso plotang ntso schema o tletse ka nyoko mo tlhogong. You don't get to think that you can do that and have your country be a cushy little bubbly, like exciting cumulus nimbus cloud on which you can just hang out. You don't get to protect yourself fully one while you villa-pisa an entire country. That's what you do, ni villa-pisa an entire country. South Africa kaofela. If a person can believe where they can get whatever they want, however nefariously, so they get it, just by, casting a spell, Why, Joe? How many people are going to have an incentive to go buy your funda? How many people are going to feel an incentive to actually put in the time to get the job done? How many people are going to want to work hard when they feel as if the tagati is all they need to do in order to get what they want in life? You all need to understand there are ramifications. We've got lazy politicians. We've got lazy private and public sector. We've got lazy employees in corporates that can't even get fired fast enough because they've been protected by a law that is irresponsible against employers. We have got a country that is falling apart because aba tagati bavila phise imzansi babenza ukuthi babelieve ukuthi bangathola yonke into abayifunayo nje without working for yona. Bangathola imedi abangazideserve. Abafazi that are way out of their league banga put abasakunyenako, not even putting in the time, making women all butch and prepared to wait for you to open the car door for them because you men are so uncultured and you lack so much chivalry that you can't even stop to think to open a door for a woman anymore. So now you've got all these butch women walking around all over the show and you wonder why you keep on slapping them silly. It's because you've made out of them men. Because you don't get to act like a little bum in a relationship while your girlfriend invest and expect how the future's not going to come when you're going to want to kill her. You don't get to do that because what is this young bora, it wouldn't have been like that if at all. When you had worked hard at the time when you were both 22, struggling to make ends meet, struggling to get your first cars, struggling to even pass on my driver's licenses. When you were both struggling, she was like, but babe, let's do this, let's try that, let's do that. No, I'll do it. And now tomorrow no woman is going to tell me anything. And then this woman skyrockets up the corporate ladder. When I was into to bam, go call centering. That's what happened with me and my ex. And then years down the line, you're all insecure. Your girlfriend makes more money than you, and you're like, how did this happen? Because when we met, I was earning more than her. That's what's going on in this country, and you wonder why there's so much gender-based violence. To get everything you literally think everything as easily 500 rand. I have a cousin. She was poverty-stricken. That's not much money. So it cost less than $1,000 to destroy my degree, to destroy my entire career. Like a patala di sangoma 400 rand 500 like a patala kere under 1,000 rands or an entire future of a bright woman or 70 or qualifying or loba university or passing university abasa khonwetsa final year gageleteng a shotaka one module fela, and all that it took was what spells are 400. All it took was spells are 500 rand. That's all it took. You think you can easily just destroy a person's entire future like that? Real hardworking people on the ground and your country not get like thrown to the dogs, fall like dominoes and they feel like da. You think you can go and grab a person but high school, like burn the midnight oil, pass a biology ka A, cry the results that you need and qualify go vets and bala medicine because you don't want her to graduate. You are taking a doctor out of the country. And so when then there are no good enough or sufficient doctors in the land, all you are left with then are corrupt ones like Abonandipa that are going to go and take one doctor out of the system when we already have got a shortage of them. Because that is the country that you have got. Environment doesn't get criminals. And you think your potholes are going to get sealed. Who in the world is going to seal your potholes when you've taken Karabo out of the country? I'm the only person that cares about them. But hey, guess what? I am too broke, too quiet, too silenced, too shadow banned on YouTube to actually get any South African hearing me about the fact that years, literally almost 2 decades what's going on? What exactly is happening in that environment? But y'all ain't gonna give me that answer, are you? Why? Because ain't nobody listening to me. Why? Because you make sure that nobody hears good South Africans. So all of you lackluster, mediocre, incompetent randos that are left running this country, you keep your can yawning, gaping. Literally, it could be a waterfall, pothole. You keep them. You keep your robots that don't work, your power cuts. You keep your gender-based violence, your men who keep beating women to a pulp, your lazy society. You keep those lazy bums in corporate that are gathering dust, that are covered by the Labor Relations Act. You keep them. You keep the post office holding on to people's products without sending text messages or letters for them to pick them up, and so therefore mess up, piss off sellers, merchants in the international market, and then get them cutting ties with South Africa in the future. You keep doing that and see what happens to this country. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord, but not before the Lord God Almighty extracts us out of this country. I told you I'm leaving South Africa, and you're going to be shocked. You're going to be shocked because you would have wondered how in the world does she even think she's going to get out of the country when nobody even is listening to her. her. That's just the thing. The Lord knows how to open a door. He takes the weak things of the world to shame the strong, and the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. So whether or not my doors appear to be shut right now because some witch or spending 500 randa ko sangomeng nka degree yaka le bokamoso ba ka kaofela, because 500 randa tsa lona kaofela tsa di korobela appear to have worked against me, you think there's no way I'm getting out of here. Except that's just the thing. The very same way that the Lord enabled for me to get my camera and all these, because of your corruption, South Africa, Romans 8:28, all things work together for the good of them who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. Because of your corruption, I got my camera for free. I shouldn't have benefited in this way. It is unfortunate for the merchant, for the seller, wako AliExpress. Okay, quite unfortunate for it. But what I'm trying to explain to you guys is that the very corruption, the very evil, the very abuse, the very gender-based violence, the very sorcery, running around on the spot spinning that very activity, that whirlwind that you're twisting and stop. That very thing is going to work out for only one conglomerate of human beings in your country, and those people are believers in the Lord Jesus Christ. Because all things work out together for the good of them who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. Only us. So Gimo, corruption what do you get? You're getting an international market refusing to do business with you. Watch this space. More and more merchants on AliExpress are going to refuse to work with South Africa, just as many of them on eBay already are refusing because of what happened today. It's unfortunate for the country, but frankly beneficial for me, and that's just exactly what's going to keep on happening. It's unfortunate that South Africa as a conglomerate is falling, is crashing, is burning, but not for me, because I'm leaving. Don't say I didn't tell you. I'm signing out in Christ's name, Cran K. Peace.